Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of LFC Transfer Room's YouTube Saturday night stream. It was a disappointing start to the day where the Merseyside derby was unfortunately called off. But I don't know about you guys, obviously being over the oceans, but I'm in the East Anglia and it's really windy here. So, it's coming in obviously from that west. I'm on the east, so it's windy here. So it must have really been windy up in Liverpool. So I think perhaps, as disappointing as it was, perhaps it probably was, best for business. CT, how's the weather over there?
Yeah, it's hot. It's hot where I am. Middle of summer, but we were talking about in the chat early in the morning. I was pessimistic that it would go ahead, and then I'm glad they cancelled it early, so everyone could get on with their day and make plans, and we could look ahead to a big game next week, and also look at some of the other fixtures today, which have turned out to be all right.
Yeah, not too bad. Hopefully, with Arsenal and obviously Chelsea playing tomorrow, hopefully a few more points can fall our way without even kicking a ball. So, we'll see. And
we just lost.
Oh no, we've lost Richie. Well,
we'll be back in a second.
Well, CT, always a pleasure to be here with you.
Likewise.
Glad that your weather's been so nice.
Thanks. Likewise. Did you see the result with the City game?
Yeah. I take so much joy out of seeing them suffer. And that looked like a game. That game really looked like they suffered the whole time. I was kind of in and out of it. I was kind of studying as I was going. So wasn't paying attention to every kick of the ball, but every time I'd pick my head up, it just looked like they were struggling throughout the entirety of it. So that was a real joy. Did you watch all of it?
I missed a lot of it actually, but I did see the scores, and I'm like, yes. And then Newcastle struggling, giving up 4 goals to Brentford.
Couldn't be against us. Although, I mean, we 7 goals against in 3 games, not ideal from their perspective. I didn't think that they were, a midweek game there in Newcastle. Like, they were really up for it. Obviously, the weather looked like it sucked. Like, obviously a lot of factors kind of going for them and against us. So still, a draw, not most ideal, but I think a lot of teams will struggle there in similar situations. So,
yeah.
So nobody's going to be perfect the rest of the time anyway. So I don't think so. It'll be okay.
Definitely. I think, like Richie said, the Arsenal one is the big one. But apologies, we've just lost Richie. He'll be back in a minute, guys. Everyone in the chat, I see. Oh, Richie's back.
See, I told you it's the wind. It's everywhere. It's affecting my internet connection. It's affecting everything. So yeah, if I do drop out, then lads, please do feel free to take over, and I do apologise. As I was saying, it does really help people setting off, etc., from all around the country, and they did call it off early. So I think that's a really good move and a really bold one as well to do it so early. But I'm sure everyone appreciated it. Colin, how are you? You okay?
Yeah, doing good. The winter is fully set on here, so it's been pretty cool. Luckily, my heater is fixed now, so that's good.
Oh, good. So it's progress from last week.
Yeah, not totally bundled up inside, so that is a positive. But yeah, woke up early. Woke up at like 7:15 before the 7:30 kickoff, and big notification on the phone: game canceled. I said, back to bed for me.
Absolutely.
So, always would have been nice to get the Merseyside derby in, but I think it would have been. I think it certainly could have been a real struggle to actually play the game. So.
Yeah, Derek Storm Dara did get me. It probably will do again, by the way. So I'm sure these guys can hold the fort if I do drop out. No connections though over the pond, as you can see, for these guys. So It has come at an okay time, I think. Actually, maybe looking at it and analysing it, I think some of the Arsenal fans thought that we created the storm and we just pressed a switch for us to get away with not playing today. With obviously Alexis McAllister was suspended for the game; he won't be for the next time. Obviously, Jota is close to coming back, as is Alisson, and Konate was obviously a doubt as well. So there are a couple of good things coming through in terms of actually, it's probably not the worst thing that we play this a little bit later. So let's start with the pros, CT. Let's start with the positives for not playing today. And obviously you can analyse the rest and what that does for the players after a tough away game in the Toon. That 3-3, I would say disappointing, but only at the end. I probably would have taken a draw if I'm honest. I think going away to Newcastle was always a tricky one. So yeah, playing 3 days later, maybe a rest is not a bad thing, is it?
I think not at all, and obviously just a little bit of a bummer that, we don't get the football and, looking forward to putting 3 points on. But when you reflect and we look back, it's like, tough game at Goodison. They were going to throw everything in the kitchen sink at us in the wind. You just never know. And so we look forward to that, the rescheduling of that fixture, and hopefully we've got a lot more guys available. But on the bright spot, we have guys on the cusp of coming back. Ali, and we've got Trent, obviously, who's just worked his way back. Let's not forget, put in a great shift so that he'll benefit from a little bit more rest as well. And obviously, Gravenberch looked leggy. He's going to get a bit more of a break, and I probably wouldn't even play him against Girona. We'll probably talk about that a little bit as well. And then, obviously Jota, I think, is not far away as well. So I think, it's really going to give this team the much needed break that we wouldn't normally get in this crowded, segment of games. And obviously we've got a game in the Champions League that doesn't have as much importance as some of the earlier games. So we'll see what Slot does with the team sheet.
Yeah, and also, I know Connor Bradley's out for a couple of weeks, it looks like, as well, as is Konate. So actually Bradley being back is a massive bonus, hopefully, because it depends what Twitter and what accounts you read, really. It looks like it's going to be around February time, because the games after Girona are going to come thick and fast, really. We've got Fulham, obviously, on the Saturday next, and then it's essentially a game every 3 days for the rest of December. So I'm struggling to see where we can fit them in, unless we finish in the top 8 of the Champions League. Then we don't have to play the playoffs. So again, it could come in there. But either way, we're still looking, back end of January at the earliest. And hopefully then, we will have the likes of Jota, Ali, Harvey Elliott, Connor Bradley back. That's not to say we won't pick up injuries along the way, of course, as well, but McAllister won't be suspended. Colin, what are the negatives then of not playing today? Are there any? Apart from obviously the disappointment of us not having anything to do, for 90 minutes to fill our day. But apart from that?
Yeah, so the one thing that I was thinking of is that it does disrupt rhythm for players. So if you are kind of building your whole schedule around, ramping up towards a game, to have that kind of totally thrown off does, it does give players extra rest, but also it separates what they would normally be doing from what is actually going to happen. And so that can throw off schedule. Hopefully that just does end up in more rest time, which would be great. The other negative, and I saw this, a couple of publications in the US had put out little stories about this, is that there was like a lot of people who kind of flew in from sort of all over the world, like international Everton fans, actually, who, this was to be the last Merseyside derby at Goodison. And so I saw someone flew in from Australia who now is like just going to be out. I really, we can, make fun of them because they're Everton fans, whatever. But like, I really do think the club should reach out to some of those people and like offer to be paying for them to come back. Like, I think that's a real, to have people out that kind of money, I think is a real problem. So it would be a good news story if the club's kind of turned around and maybe made a positive spin on trying to get some of those people back out for when the game actually does happen.
I do have some good news for you, Colin.
Hmm.
Seamus Coleman did invite said young man to the training ground today and tomorrow, and get to meet all of the players, which was really cool. You know, it was really good for him. So yeah, that was only I saw on Twitter about an hour ago. But yeah, Seamus Coleman put out a video and invited him over to the training complex and give him a tour of the ground, etc., and things like that, as they should. You know, and it's still nice of the club to do, but Everton, they are known as the People's Club, and it was a good touch. But you know, that being said, it's still one that lots of others, I'm sure, would have been a little bit out of pocket as well. But these things happen, don't they? You know, you can't control the weather, unfortunately. If we did, Sean Dyche would play in this wind all the time, I'm sure.
Oh, that would have been what a miserable affair it would have been today. Every time the ball goes above your head, it just would have been, been blown all around. Like it would have been horrendous to play.
Yeah, and to be fair, I was thinking, you know what? If we'd lost, the uproar of the Liverpool fans would have been, this game should have been called off. We should never have played it in the first place, and the FA have screwed us over, right, because it would have gone one way or another. And I tend to think it was the best call really today. Moving forward, for fan safety, for player safety as well. So, yeah, alas, we move on. And like we said, with the game being off, it did allow us to look around. And I watched the Manchester City and Crystal Palace game. And I wasn't really that impressed with Manchester City. They do seem to be in a bit of a rut. It's another 2 points where they've dropped. So the gap, if we win a game in hand, goes back to 11. Pep Guardiola says this is a season to suffer. And he says, you can't win the title by losing 5 in a row and drawing the other. So he's really not happy. I think he must have forgot that he actually did get a win in midweek. But yeah, he's not very happy. But again, ball sort of then comes into our court. CT, we've obviously got, the London teams playing tomorrow. We've got Chelsea, who have come into second place from absolutely nowhere. Obviously level on points with Arsenal. Liverpool, still ahead in terms of, in terms of quite an amount of points. But still, Chelsea have got a tough game tomorrow. And I think Arsenal do as well at Fulham. I don't think they're going to be easy games. So all eyes and pressure actually is going to be on them tomorrow. What do you think?
Yeah, I think probably Chelsea are the more favoured to drop points. I think obviously Ange is under the pump, and Tottenham, at home need to give a response based on their loss to Bournemouth. So Arsenal, I think Fulham are a chance to get a draw out of it. But I just think Tottenham's probably the better chance. It's going to be high end to end. I tell you what, two teams that just don't give a bollocks about defending. It might be 4-4. Might be hope. Let's hope it's 5-5 or something for any of our FP people that have got some players in there. But yeah, look, Arsenal, I think that's just the main thing. I mean, this could be a really, really good weekend if Arsenal drop points again, Richie and Colin. I think, then the doubt will really start to creep in, and suddenly we've got that game in hand, and we haven't really, dropped, any ground on them. So I think that'll be the dream scenario.
I also think that it massively helps, yes, in the rest, although saying that we said rest, I saw Mo Salah was in the gym today. Of course he was. So that was quite cool. But, we say the rest will do us good. Yes, I do think it does affect the rhythm. I completely agree. And it's one of those that it's good to have a rest, but I also do think, like Colin alluded to, you could have too much of a good thing, and you can get out of that rhythm. But actually, I think we're in such a good rhythm, and Girona are going to be a really good team to play in midweek. I think with obviously Fulham on the horizon as well. I do think Girona are going to be a really good team to test us, and hopefully it's one that we can rise to. Colin, with the news of Diogo Jota being back, how much of a massive boost is that to Liverpool?
Yeah, it's hard to state actually how important it is to get some of these guys back. Diogo Jota, I think at the highest of that list. just being able to have those extra options off the bench, and to not have to. I mean, we've kind of waxed poetic in the past about about Jota coming off the bench and his prospects when he does. I think it's a massive, massive thing to have that as an asset on 60 if you need a goal. I just like try, as someone who played mostly in defense, like I'm trying to think about like having to chase down Nunez for 65 minutes, and then to know that when Jota comes off the bench, that all he needs is one sniff. All you have to do, if you take your foot off for 1 second of a game, he'll put it in the back of the net. So that kind of skill set in particular that I think he brings is so valuable, I think especially in big games, especially when you need a sub. I think he's miserable to have to deal with after kind of the physical battle of dealing with someone as with the physical prowess I think that some of our attackers do have. So getting him back, I think Chiesa not that far behind. I saw he played an under-21s game. Getting some guys back with healthy, fresh legs and working them into that rhythm, I think especially over the next month and a half is going to be a huge asset. I think that a lot of the other competitors really don't have at this time.
Yeah, and I think it alleviates a little bit of stress from Darwin Nunez as well, who's an absolute workhorse. I absolutely adore the man. I know that he's quite contentious amongst the fan base, but actually he works so hard for the team. He has a massive impact when he comes off the bench as well. So actually, that Jota Nunez rotation through that 9 channel will really help. Although to be fair, I have liked to see Luis Diaz through that middle as well. But Jota CT just offers something completely different off the bench. He's a natural finisher. I'd say he's, one of the best natural finishers in a Liverpool shirt. I think you could probably exclude Salah from that. But in terms of actual finishing, Jota is head and shoulders above anyone bar Salah, I would say, this season.
Yeah, I agree without question. He's, our most out and out, striker, clinical striker on the team, and takes a half chance. Like you said, he only needs that. His positioning is amazing, but he's a threat aerially as well. He'll get to a ball as well, a half chance, half volley, and he takes that chance. So the problem is, and as everyone agrees, his availability is his downfall, or drawback. But when he's fit and firing, it's great to have him in the squad. But I just want to give Chiesa an honourable mention, because it looks like he was ramping himself up to fitness, and it looks like we're at the stage where we might finally see him, in a meaningful game, meaningful minutes. What do you think about that?
Colin, I mean, Chiesa is obviously only played bit parts. He's made cameo appearances. Liverpool basically put him through a pre-season of his own during the season. Obviously, it didn't look like Juventus had managed his fitness very well over the past couple of years. How big of an impact is he going to have? Because it will, I would imagine, reduce Salah's minutes. We know that Mohamed Salah doesn't like being taken off. He does throw his toys out of the pram, but at the same time, it does protect him in the long run, doesn't it? So again, it can only be a good thing. Yeah,
I think especially for, I don't think he's going to be available for this game against Girona, but this game against Girona, it is the perfect kind of game for Chiesa to have been available for, right? This kind of prototype of game, which is a midweek game against a lesser, I'm happy to say a lesser opponent, regardless of their status in the Champions League at the moment. Someone who he's an opponent who he's more familiar and a style of play that he's probably more familiar against as well. I really think it is. I mean, you guys both mentioned this, that this kind of like reintroduction to the team, or this kind of a long process of ramping up his fitness, I think is exactly the right path to go through. I don't think it was going to work if they were going to try to piece him in here and there and like work. It was the correct decision, wholly the correct decision, I think, to kind of take him out of contention, almost break it down to the base level again, and build him up from the ground. If you kind of want someone for long-term fitness, for someone who's going to be available for the rest of the season, you have to get it right. It's not. I don't think it's a good idea to kind of to have someone in and then his fitness is in question and he's in and he's out. We don't. You're not able to rely on people in that way, even if it's not like big injuries. So I'm very excited to have him back as well. Again, same thing. Having 6 really dynamic attacking players ask so many questions of teams, regardless of that team's quality. And having 6 players of our front sixes quality, it is such a problem for opposing teams to have to worry about. So thrilled to be able to get those 2 guys back healthy, fingers crossed, and healthy for the rest of the season.
And also, you said about that front 6 as well. Yeah, obviously they're 2 front 3s, and they can rotate in. Imagine like you've just defended for your life for 60 minutes up against, let's say, Gakpo, Nunez, and Salah, and then you've got Chiesa, Jota, and Gakpo coming on for the last 30, just going to run at you with essentially what would be 90 minutes worth of energy in 30 minutes. Yeah. Like it must be
starting international player. Like these are guys who are not. These are not slouches. These are not like academy guys. Like these are people with real prowess, and like that is having that off the bench is so. It's actually impossible if they're firing like and playing at a high level. It's actually impossible for defenses to be able to game plan for it. If you're tired on 70 minutes, that it's an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, it's going to be good. I really hope that, because the Euros where he tore England an absolute new hole was phenomenal. Not from an England perspective, but actually if we get that Federico Chiesa, then it looks like we're going to get a really exciting player. Actually, even if we get 70% of that player, it'd be massively exciting. So fingers crossed for Fede Chiesa as well to be coming in. Girona actually play our arch nemesis in Europe. They play Real Madrid tonight. They are at home. It's an 8 o'clock kickoff. So if anyone wants to see what we're up against, they are playing. So again, we might have a couple of days rest over them. Obviously, we kick off on Tuesday against them. But they play today against Madrid, who obviously we've just seen off. If you wanted to flick over, obviously after this stream though, because there are nearly 4,000 of you engaging with us tonight, so thank you very, very much. We will be going for another about 15 minutes because obviously there's not, without the football, too much to talk about in terms of breaking down the post-match or the pre-match. I do want to just have a very quick look. January is fast approaching now. Again, we're all everybody, I think, in Liverpool Football Club will think January would be a great time to bring in players. I might be in the minority here and say, actually, I don't think it is a great time for Liverpool this season to start bringing in players. I think our midfield is absolutely solid. I think we've got some great rotation with Harvey Elliott coming in. I don't think the centre-back is necessarily needed either, like we were saying in the summer. And I do think our left-back position, it's okay. Yes, it could be strengthened. I don't know by who or when, because January, again, it's a tricky one to get players in. You either pay a premium or you're getting somebody who's disgruntled and wants to leave. CT, with the January transfer window fast approaching, do you think Liverpool would be doing any business at all? Would it be a case of perhaps players going out on loan, or do you think there might be some incomings?
Yeah, look, I think my opinion's changed on this, and I agree. You make a great point, Richie, about disrupting the chemistry of what's happening right now. And look, I've been a little bit critical recently of Slot not utilising some of the bench late in the game, especially the Newcastle one, with some guys that he could have brought on. So there are some guys on the bench that he's that are more than capable of playing that he's not using as much as he could, with Morton and Endo, and Harvey's now available obviously as well. But I could see us bringing in 1 or 2 still, and it could be something like a player that's not going to, be expected to come into the team immediately, but provide that depth, maybe at left back, maybe a younger centre back, a guy for the future, Looks like we're going to get great news soon on the Ibu front. He's going to sign a new deal, and that seems imminent. But obviously, I think the club will still be looking at future prospects as well. So yeah, I could see maybe us recalling Bajcetic on off loan as well from Salzburg. I know some people in our chat would like to see him come back home, and that his club's not doing as well under Pep Linders. So maybe we do recall him just for an extra body. But in terms of loan, I know Dan's was probably going to get a loan move before he hurt his back, didn't he? But now he's fit and firing and playing for the academy. And Chiesa scored a goal as well with the academy as well. So yeah, maybe a loan out for Dan's, maybe a recall for Bajcetic. What do you think about that?
Colin, I'll pass it on to you. I think a loan out for Dan's is a really good idea, actually. I think, wasn't he going to go to Plymouth, Wayne Rooney's Plymouth, I think? I think he was going to head there, and now he's back. Let's face it, I can't see him getting in past that front six. So, I think he's definitely going to be there, and I do think a loan would help. As you think of your answer, I had the whole screen full on, so I've not actually seen that Dan has been waiting in the wings. He's just messaged me saying that he's literally in the background. So I'm just going to add Dan in as well whilst you give us your discussion and answer.
All righty. Yeah, I think anybody who's not getting the minutes, I think should go off and get the time that honestly that is needed. Like I'm really happy to see Dan's off. I hope he stays healthy. I hope he gets a lot of game time. I'm sure there will be many clubs who will need someone of his skill set. So hopefully that even if it doesn't happen and materialize in the first week or even the first 2 weeks of January, that if he's continuing to work himself between now, so that's like, let's say a month from now, if he's continuing to work himself into really good fitness, there will be plenty of clubs, needing someone who's got some goals in them. I think midfield wise, I think the winter window, I think can be really interesting. It can be used as a tool rather than like kind of somewhere that you need to go out and be and spend money just because you feel like you have to, or because that's kind of what fans or what people would want you to do. I think if anybody is available who you really were going to purchase in next summer anyways. So let's say if that is Zubamendi, let's just use that as an example. If we were going to do that next summer and he is available and you have the opportunity to do it, and the expectations are put on him that, hey, we don't actually really care if you play like all that much. We want you to get adjusted. We want to get you really integrated in what we expect from you, making sure that you understand the roles within the team. And then if he can make a couple cameo appearances, or if there's an injury, then I think that's great. And I think that you should then take the opportunity to do the business when it's available. But I don't think that you need to be too worried about like having to go do business. And if none is done in terms of incomings, I'm sort of with you, Richie. I'm totally fine to have nothing done. I would rather have nothing done than do a lot out of a feeling of a need or necessity. So.
Yeah, I think what you raised there was a really good point, because Gakpo and Diaz were done early. They were supposed to be summer signings, but it was only the fact that other clubs actually went for them that they came in January, thankfully, instead. And, that's because we wanted to move early and we didn't want to lose those targets. So, yeah, I think if the right player comes on at the right time, we know that Liverpool only buy the players that they want. They certainly don't panic buy. I can see a Zubamendi type player going to Manchester City. If I'm completely honest, I don't think they'll just roll over in January.
No.
But, if they do go for him, then that might open the door for us to go back in, match the bid of City. We know that Sociedad haven't given that contract that they promised him with all the mountains. So, that vision, I suppose, would still be there, and that need would still be there as well. So we'd have to see. Dan, welcome to the stream. I apologise. I had you on like a full screen, so I didn't actually see you waiting in there. So it's a good job that you messaged, otherwise you would have been sitting there. So how are you?
No, it's no problem. I've realized that, maybe I should qualify that I'm literally just here, just enjoying up in the back room. No, I'm doing fine. This is actually very hilarious because we're doing another rendition of Star Stripes and Enfield Knights, except we're doing the British Commonwealth edition, all former colonies to His Majesty's government of King George III. It's funny doing that stream Tuesday with Colin, who couldn't make it, sadly, which we missed him. I thought that this week would be interesting because I felt we could really pull away, and seeing City's results today, and how Arsenal are still have injuries but players coming back. We had I thought it was a really good opportunity to pull away. The Newcastle game surprised me a bit, mostly because I was surprised about how well Newcastle played, especially like Isaac played very well, and Gordon had a really good game, which is the first time in a while. I think what the Newcastle game showed us is that one, like this, I think that there's you could make an argument that you could buy one or two players, but I think that those players that you're buying are mostly youth targets, or like you guys said, players that you would sign in the summer. And I don't think there's anybody on the list right now that you would reasonably want to buy in January. Miklos Kirkes at Bournemouth, who I really like as left back. You're not getting it from Bournemouth in January, and Bournemouth have been very, very good. Martin Zubimendi, he has City written all over him. I think he's going to go to City and be fine, but take about 4 months to settle in. I think the backup to Gravenberch is very easy. It's Curtis Jones. I think that what you've seen from Slot and how he's done this season is that he wanted Zubimendi because he's essentially just Curtis Jones, but a little bit more refined, good at everything, great at nothing. Even though some people would say that Curtis Jones is bad at everything and great at nothing as well. He's just great at being a scouse. I disagree with that opinion, but, to each their own, so to speak. I don't think you should strengthen. Let me phrase that. I think that's the wrong phrasing. I don't think you should buy anyone in January that you were not already planning to buy, is what I think everyone has here and said. And I don't think there's any big players that they're going to buy. As much as some people want in our chat to sell Darwin Nunez to a bank somewhere to loan him out and then leverage that loan to buy, Benjamin Šeško from RB Leipzig, or insert another forward or player here from around Europe. I just don't think that's going to happen. And I think Arne Slot has very much made it clear that he likes the 18 to 20 players he has. And the only thing I could see is like I think Colin and CT hit it out the park. Dan's getting a loan, possibly away. Rio, the new Aguma, the youth player we signed from Chelsea, maybe getting some minutes. Trey had some minutes in the League Cup, not the Capital One Cup. That's a couple years away. So I could see some of the youth players being loaned out. I don't think he's going to bring back Bajcetic because I think that, as bad as Salzburg have been this year, which is not Pep's fault, Pep Linders, that is, not Pep Guardiola. I just don't think I don't see them cutting that loan short unless it's a massive injury crisis, but I just don't think that that's going to happen with this midfielder at the moment. So I think that Slot's going to do with what he has. And honestly, once we have everyone back, Konate, Bradley back in January or into December, Chiesa is back in training, Jota's back, we're going to have a pretty stocked 22. We're going to be in a situation where, Gomez or Kwanzaa may not make a bench for the next like January, February onward, injuries depending. And, Allison back too. There's not really a glaring place that you can buy. People will make arguments about, this player and that player, but I think that's what he's going to do. And I think long-term, that's probably where Slot wants to keep Jones, is play him deeper and play Szoboszlai as a 10, Harvey Elliott as a 10, who we've seen him play very well, and probably Federico Chiesa as a 10 as well.
Yeah, Fede as a 10's an interesting shout as well, because as we said earlier as well, Mo doesn't like to come off, and that does affect his performances. I think when he comes off and he feels like he has to really prove himself the week afterwards to not be subbed off. So yeah, Chiesa in that 10 could be one to go for as well. And in terms of Kirkes, yeah, Bournemouth would be mad to let him go in the January window. I think he's phenomenal though. I'd love to see him in a Liverpool shirt in the summer. I do think left back is a position in the summer that needs revisiting, if I'm honest. And even if Ali does go down again and something happens to Kelleher, then we've got Yaros. So Liverpool squad depth in the goalkeeping department is something actually to be beheld, because Yados has impressed, not just when he's been called up to the first team, but he's been quite impressive actually every time that I've seen him play, whether that's for the under-21s or whoever it may be. Colin, what are you expecting then this week from a Girona side who are 5 minutes in now to their clash against Real Madrid? What are you expecting to see? Are you expecting to see basically the team that would have played against Everton, or do you expect for some big names to perhaps be rested at the start and then come on towards the end? Or do you think Slot flips it around? Do you think he starts the Salahs and the Nunez's and then he brings on players towards the end?
He's shown a pretty steadfast insistence on playing the team that that you would expect, playing the first team, playing his first choices if they're available to be played, especially in the Champions League. He's played them. There's been very little rotation, so while it's maybe not necessarily what I might do, I think he's playing the strongest possible side. They're seventh in La Liga, so mid-table Premier League, mid minus. I'm forgetting, I think, where they are currently in the Champions League standings. I think it's higher than people might have thought, but I would expect him to play as strong of a team as possible, and then to hope to get the lead, and then to be able to rotate on 50 or 60 minutes up 3 or 4 goals.
Yeah, Girona are 30th in the Champions League standings. They've got 3 points out of 5 games, -5 goal difference. However, Real Madrid, who are 24th, only have 6 points, and that is where the playoff positions end. So a win for Girona, depending on obviously how other results go, but it takes them closer to that playoff place. So they definitely need to win, Girona. They're not going to roll over. They know that they need to win to get into the playoff positions. Obviously, Liverpool need to win to extend their lead at the top. They're obviously 2 points ahead of Inter Milan, 3 points ahead of Barcelona, and obviously after this game, we'd have 2 more. Is that right? 2 more for total of 8 Champions League games.
Yeah, and actually, because Liverpool are at right now, the 8th place cutoff for the automatic qualification is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is 10th with Monaco, Villa, and Arsenal around 10 points. So if Liverpool win or draw, it's not the end of the world. If they win, they're pretty much almost guaranteed qualification at that point. So I agree with Colin. I think he'll go strong. I think you could see a situation where Gravenberch is rested, and you see a midfield of McAllister, Jones, and Szoboszlai or Harvey, some McKay's on the bench, Jota on the bench if they're fit and available, and then somewhat rotated in as well. Girona are a very weird team. They have a lot of players that you've heard of or maybe you forgot about. They have Oriol Romeu from Southampton fame and Barcelona fame, Danjuma, or now Danjuma of Everton fame, Evertonian fame as well, Villarreal fame. They're not a good team for the most part in terms of quality. They are mid-table La Liga, which is probably lower to upper tier, champions in terms of quality of players in general. Doesn't mean you shouldn't take them seriously, but if Liverpool play anywhere close to their normal level, they should win this on a canter for the most part. Granted, I said that about Newcastle, and we'll see how that one went on Saturday.
Newcastle's always difficult away. Always such a horrible game away. Newcastle.
It is, and I underestimated Newcastle's ability to play against top teams because I completely forgot that they had those wins against Arsenal and those results against other good teams. So they're kind of a poor man's version of Klopp. 2016-17. A team that can beat the top teams, but it struggles against lesser opposition. And you saw it today with Newcastle and Brentford. Brentford, who are and now Newcastle are actually above Manchester United, but all the way down to 15th. But yeah, no, I also expect, just to have Colin, that he'll probably go relatively strong, try to get the game won by 60, rotate people off. I think Salah will come off at 60, 65. And then who do we play after that? Richie,
Fulham.
Do you know?
Fulham
at home. That'll be fun.
Yeah.
I'm not looking forward to that. That's gonna be a classic at Anfield.
Yeah, I think it'll be. We'll see what Arsenal do against them tomorrow as well, because I think that's a nice little bit of scouting homework for us. We won't see McAllister because he's suspended in that midfield. And just to add to two others of your Girona fame, they've started actually Donny van der Beek of Manchester United infamy, I think we could say, and Brian Gill of Spurs as well. He's on that left hand side. So yeah, it's a who's who of ex-Premier League stars. Should we say stars? Should we? No, maybe not. Maybe not stars. I don't think. CT, what are we expecting in terms of Girona, in terms of how they play, or are they just going to come to? Because let's not forget, I said they're 3 points away from the playoffs. A point away at Anfield would also be a phenomenal result for them, with you would say easier fixtures for them to play. So are they going to come and park the bus? Are they going to come and have a go? What is it that you're expecting from them?
I think, they've got to come and try to hit us on the counter. I think, they'll be nervy in the beginning, not to make that mistake early, because we're going to pounce, and we're going to have a very strong squad out there still. I hope Slot rotates a bit. I want to see Harvey get some minutes. I think Allison will come in. I think it's a good game to actually, with slightly less intensity or pressure, you would say, maybe compared to a Premier League game. So I think that if he's cleared, obviously, it would be a great game to get him in. McAllister's out, like we said in the chat. He's going to miss the next two. So I think Dominic Szoboszlai was going to come into that middle. I really want to rest Curtis Jones' legs as much as I can as well, because everyone's talking about Gravenberch, but obviously Jones has been playing a lot more than he has this season. I think more so in the last few seasons, and he's had a good run at it as well. Let's hope that continues. But yeah, I think it would be a good game to try to get someone like a Jota in, or a Harvey if they can come in. I do think Gakpo will probably get the minutes. He's on a tear in the Champions League at the moment. And then we have to be really, really careful about the back four, and manage that the best that we can. I think Simi is probably not far off. What do you guys know about Simi? I think, hopefully he's getting close, and I think Ibu might not be that far away compared to what some people say. Probably by the end of the month.
I'm a little worried about the left back situation. I think the last I'd seen of Tsimikas was him holding his crutches up, and that was like a week ago.
So yeah, strange, wasn't it, that?
Very, very odd. I hadn't heard anything about it being nearly that serious, and to have him photographed currently still on crutches would suggest to me that he's a month away at best.
Yeah, it was very odd that I didn't expect to see him on crutches. If I'm completely honest, I didn't expect for him to be like that. It is away at Girona. Yeah, thanks to Lasedian for Colin for clarifying that. And it's also a 5:45 kickoff as well. So it's not the traditional 8 o'clock. So be careful of that. Don't get caught out. It is a 5:45 kickoff in UK time, obviously. So yeah, it is earlier than the traditional later kickoff. So make sure that you're tuned in for that. I just had to check my work calendar, and I have seen that I've got meetings up until 5:30. So I think a few of those might have to get pushed either forwards through the day, or they might get moved to Wednesday. So sorry for anybody who I let down there, but needs must. Final thoughts, then we'll go around, and the final thought round obviously is anything that you would like to discuss and to talk about. And Dan, since you've been waiting in the wings, we will go for you first, and thank you for joining us as well at such late notice.
Oh no, of course. Well, first off, Mihai's just, have to drag me as always. My Romanian brother. I don't know why. I don't know why he has to do this to me all the time. Like, I thought we were friends, Mihai. Like, this makes me sad. I guess my final thoughts are, considering, the fact that our worst result of the season is a 2-2 draw away to Arsenal, a 1-0 loss to Forest at home, which, Forest just beating Man United. I know it's not saying much, but considering the fact that Forest have been better than I think a lot of us anticipated. Even more than I thought they'd be good last year, and 3-3 away draw to Newcastle, and we've pretty much won every other game. I think just shows, one, how good we are. Two, I think it shows that there's really no need to panic. And I think we're all just anxious because of obviously losing the City 2 times on the bounce by 1 point for the title has just left us in a certain mental space where we can't be comfortable until we're 15 points ahead. Considering this weekend's results and the fact that by the time we play Fulham, we'll have a game in hand on Arsenal, and we'll probably have a pretty good idea of like where our squad looks like. I just think we should just enjoy it kind of a little bit more. I know I say that it's very simple saying, like guys, just have fun. We're just here for the fun. I think that everyone gets a bit too wound up by the game in the moment, which is fine. Like, it's a sport, we're all here to support Liverpool and criticize our players. And I think that this Liverpool team as it is now is not in its final form. It was in its final form at Klopp. By this time in December last year, we had those 2 draws. We were not in a title race. People were saying the same exact things they were saying last year, buy a 6, sell Darwin, like, why is Allison hurt? We need a left back. We're very much repeating. We're dragging out repeating things we said last year and probably in years past. So I think we should just like enjoy the ride in the sense that, this is a team that is going to get better, which is very actually scary. I think that Salah, if this is Salah's last year, and I think by all intents and purposes, it's looking very likely that it could be his last year at Liverpool, for him to essentially end the year with the same stats he started his career at Liverpool is just madness. Maybe there's a final contract offer in the wings. And I think we just need to enjoy it a little bit more. And I think that's kind of what happened, at the end of Klopp. And I think it's part of COVID. I think it's part of the fact that we didn't get to celebrate, the title win, all together with family and friends at the time, and maybe even have lost family and friends, is that we just need to enjoy it a bit more. And I think if we are able to take that enjoyment out of the ride a bit more, I think we'll have a better time, all together if we're just able to enjoy the process a bit more, the lulls, the highs, and everything in between. And then, by this time in June, we can all get back on here and say, yeah, I want to sell half the team and buy, Madrid's starting 11. That's our plan as well. We could save the madness for the end of the season and maybe not get caught up in like the madness at halftime at Newcastle at St. James's Park.
Yeah, and I do think that I certainly sometimes forget we're top of the league, by a good few points now, and that hopefully that can extend over the course of this month. I would have taken top 4. I would have taken 3rd place again with Arne Slot's first season, let him transition. I think that would have been a really good achievement to get top 4. So to be where we are, top of Europe, top of the Champions League, top of the world, top of the Premier League, I do think, I don't want to say we're taking it for granted because we're Liverpool Football Club, and of course we should always aim to win trophies and titles. But I would never just not expect this start. I think if anyone would have said, "Oh, I did," I think you're probably lying to yourself because just for Arne Slot to only lose 1 game in the Premier League is pretty phenomenal when we're entering December. So for me, I just think I agree with you. We should enjoy it a bit more. But when you're top, you want to stay top, and that pressure sends us all a little bit crazy as well. CT, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you guys said some great words there, and I think based on what we've seen so far up until this point in the Prem, it's a new dawn. City dropping points again today. We've seen them firsthand a week ago. They're not the same squad, and I think we put them to bed that game. I think that Liverpool win, I was confident saying it on the day, and I think it rings home even more today that they're out of the race. It's not just about points. You have to just look at how they're playing and how can they make up that ground. Not only that, but how can they actually go on a huge run? I just don't see it anymore. So yeah, all eyes turn to Arsenal. I think we just need to chip at it, keep at it. One thing that I really want us to do is trust our bench, rotate the squad. Don't panic about whoever Premier League opponent it is. Just keep guys fresh. Rotate the front 3. Rotate the middle a little bit with substitutes. Yes, if you want to start Gravenberch, Dom, McAllister, and Jones, all the games. Once the game's won, 60, I don't care if it's 70. Don't be afraid to bring some of the reserves on. Because I think in the long run, it's a long season. And the one thing that I can see derailing us is an injury, not bench players coming on and giving us big minutes. It's an injury, I think. And so if we can avoid that, I think we're going to go on to win it. And I think we've all seen how important Konate is. And there's a quality, there's a drop off. As much as I love Joe and Kwanzaa, we're an absolute brick wall with Konate and Verge. So if he remains healthy and our centre back partnership, I think we're a very stingy defence and we don't concede goals. So that's the key for me for taking home the Prem.
Yeah, titles are won with defences, is what they say. So games are won by goals and titles are won by defences. And we've kept 7 clean sheets, I heard on the radio today, in this Premier League season. And again, that's how titles are won, by keeping those clean sheets. Colin, any final thoughts?
Lots of excitement. I think kind of what everybody's kind of saying is, for me, distill down to like it really feels like a big moment. It really feels like an important time to be a Liverpool fan, to Dan's point, to be enjoying the process of of fighting for it, of going through it, and feeling those emotions of whatever is going to come. We love doing this. We love sitting with friends and talking about our thoughts and opinions on it. And the thing that I always am trying to keep in the forefront of my mind is that we have no control. So you really are just kind of along for the ride. So far the ride's been great, and we do the best that we can to keep our heads on level and make sure that hopefully the rest of the ride is as good as the first part has been. So I think that this, especially the next couple of weeks, if we can kind of build on the momentum that we have already, I think we're in for some special moments.
Yeah, and just to echo what you said, if we end how we started, we will be Premier League champions. Absolutely, 100%. So it's Arsenal do have a nice run of fixtures. I do think, as CT said, it is eyes on Arsenal now, because they do have a nice run of fixtures that you would expect them to win most of their games over the course. But we have seen Ødegaard, when Ødegaard goes down, Arsenal aren't the same team. Saka isn't the same player. And yes, it would be the same if Virgil van Dijk and maybe Mohamed Salah go down, but I would expect a Diaz to be able to play on the right, maybe a Gakpo as well. So I do think Virgil is the big one. So fingers crossed that the big Dutchman can stay fit. So thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. There's nearly 5,000 of you who have joined us tonight on the Saturday Night Club. So thank you all very, very much for that. Apologies that obviously there was no game today, but I do think, as we discussed earlier on, there's perhaps more pros than cons, and we can wait to take that 40-second victory and be the kings of Goodison Park, because obviously we are tied at 41-all in terms of the Premier League wins. So we can wait for that, and we don't need any excuses about the wins for those Toffees and those Blue Noses to say it was all due to the win. So we'll wait. Your time will come, and hopefully it will come pretty soon, because I really am just dreading a 5-game week fixture pile up in April just before we play Manchester City. We've got Merseyside derby to play as well, but we'll see what happens. Thank you all very, very much for joining us today. Thanks to Darren, thanks to CT, and thanks to Colin for making my job so much easier and having some great thoughts and discussions. As always, take care, stay safe, and if you're in this wind, batten down the hatches. But for now, and as always, up the Reds.